Welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast. Tonight, I am joined by Eric and Don to discuss some trade targets for both contenders and rebuilding teams. Ryan Bickerstaff drops by with a Devy Debrief, and the crew reviews some recent trades and discuss trade strategies. And away we go. Time to pull up a chair and talk some Dynasty football. I am your host, JJ Wenner, and this is the Rider Dynasty podcast. Tonight we focus on trade targets, reviewing moves for contenders and rebuilders. And finally, we're going to talk about some trades. Joining me tonight are my friends Don Detweiler and Eric Braun. How you doing, Don?
Dude, I'm great. Here we are, all is right in the world again. I feel like a broken record because I'm on my high horse, 9-0, looks so good. Headed into Jacksonville, which every normal human would say is a total trap game because it's immediately followed by the Thursday night against the Ravens.
Eric, I should have seen that coming. I walked right into the trap. I saw him grinning. I didn't understand why. And then he sprung, the only things that undefeated teams like Don and me can know. His team has not been defeated, and my team has only been defeated. Both undefeated. Eric, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right, JJ. Although I'm with you. I could really go for a Steelers loss right about now. So.
Yeah, I know. That's the one thing we can all agree on. Anyway, follow us on Twitter at RideOrDynasty. Check out our website, RiderDynasty.com, for all of our latest articles. Tune into the Cover 3 podcast with Jared, Brendan, and Blair. This week they played a new round of Riddle Me This. Again, I was stumped and would have lost the game. I don't like the fact that the other pod appears to be smarter than us, gentlemen. Anybody ready to write some Shakespearean riddles for us?
You don't want me trying to do that.
Yeah, no.
Oh, that's right.
I was going to say, ouch! You threw us under the bus, but I don't know. I don't know if we were really anything to compete.
Yeah, I don't see either of you stepping up to start penning some prose for us. So let's check on the news. Antonio Brown seems to be in a little bit of trouble again after an incident at his home where he threw a bike and destroyed a camera. How many weeks are we giving him before he gets let go by the Bucs? Don?
I'm going on 3 weeks because I think by the end of 3 weeks, you'll have a healthy Evans and Godwin will be right where they need to be in their progressions back from various dings in Godwin's case of surgery. So I'm thinking he is a stopgap before the AB show has run its course. And I only think it's that long because of these guys recovering and the history with Bruce Arians. And he's kind of in that phase of a coach's life, kind of at the end where they want to help guys and give guys who've helped them before that extended chance.
Eric, 3 weeks, over or under?
I think it's going to be over. I kind of think they're going to just stick it out as long as they can. If the NFL doesn't force him to do anything, and if he doesn't get suspended, we all know he's a nut at this point. They knew that when they signed him, but I don't know if you're smelling a Super Bowl and you're Bruce Arians and you haven't won one. I don't know. He's already on the roster. Like at this point, just stick it out.
I think their hand's going to get forced. The NFL has already said they didn't know about this latest incident when they reinstated him. I think it's only a matter of time until video of that incident hits the airwaves. And if it shows what I think it's going to show, I think Antonio Brown might be out of a job in less than 3 weeks. So I'm going under 3 weeks. Eric's over. Don is at 3 and I'm under. Just for the record, just so we know where we all stand. Also in the news, Houston is casting a wide net in their coaching search. I hope so. Personally, both of you, if you have a new coach coming to your team, do you prefer an offensive-minded coach or a defensive-minded coach? Don?
So my thought process with whether you want the more offensive or more defensive coach has to do where your best player lies. If your best player is a quarterback, then I want the offensive guy to come in and maximize that position. If your best players are on the defensive side of the ball, I want the defensive-minded coach to come in and right the ship and bring in that stability that solid defense does, because you're more than likely grooming a younger quarterback or newer players that are going to take time to acclimate to the game. So for me, since obviously the quarterback is the best player on that team, I want an offensive coach who's going to be able to keep him happy, A, and B, get the absolute best out of him and the weapons available.
That's interesting. Now, Eric, normally you would hear if a team has a strong offense, such as Houston, right? They have a strong offensive player, that they look to bring in a defensive-minded coach to build up that side of the ball. Now, Don is kind of saying on his end, he's looking and saying that the head coach has to be simpatico, right? Has to be able to work with the best player on the team. So if you have a strong offensive player, you should bring in a strong offensive coach. Do you agree?
I kind of like what Don's saying. I kind of like the idea of build around your strengths and maximize that area, win at what you do best, and just kind of try to stabilize the rest of things. So I like that aspect of it, but I will say I feel like the whole way the NFL looks at coaching is a little off, and I guess we don't get the inside look at what goes into the process, but it's so focused on offensive and defensive coordinators and who's had a good offense recently and who's had a good defense, and I just feel like it's so out of line with what actually goes into being a good coach, where just because you're a great play caller and you're a great offensive coordinator doesn't mean you're a great head coach. And same on the defensive side of the ball, where it's this completely different skill set of kind of like developing players, managing egos, managing coaches, hiring coaches, things like that, game planning, where I think it's, I mean, obviously there's some things that are similar, but I don't know. I just kind of find the coaching search to be odd, and, where's the love for the special teams coaches and things like that? I mean, I know John Harbaugh was a special teams coach back in the day, and that worked out. So,
and the Judge, right?
Yeah.
And
Joe Judge over in New York, although there was a little bit of a kerfuffle this week.
And further back, Bill Cowher was a special teams coach.
Was Cowher a special teams coach?
He was, yep. Here's the next question about what coach do you want? Do you want to go young, inexperienced, but promising, or do you want retread? And that's a really interesting question for a franchise to decide what they want. What do you guys think about that?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I was gonna say I'd go with the new guy unless you have an absolute lock, borderline Hall of Fame option. I'd go with the new guy because I think it's just your upside's a lot greater. I mean, who do you really want to bring back in, Jim Caldwell or Jay Gruden? And I don't think either of them is a disastrous head coach. I just think, why not swing for the fences?
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Eric, on that. I know it often fails bringing in like a hot college coach or a hot college coordinator.
Yeah.
But I'd rather swing big and fail than bring in Jeff Fisher.
Right.
And go 8-8. There's nothing in that for the team. There's no growth. There's no learning. There's no innovation. And I think that truly the best coaches in the league are the coaches who don't give an F what other coaches think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's once you get out of this cycle of nepotism that has just inundated the NFL, and you see the same names year after year, and it's tired. I mean, look how excited everybody is over the Arizona Cardinals, right? Cliff Kingsbury comes in, changes things up. It's exciting. But sometimes you get a Chip Kelly. So I don't know. I mean, I liked Rex Ryan when he came in as the Jets coach. I thought he really did great things for the defense, but he wasn't a great enough coach to overcome that limited capability. I like special teams coaches personally. I don't know. I think Mike Westhoff would have been a fantastic head coach of the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Very seldom. I think for me, in this situation, when you have a dynamic quarterback with the athleticism that Watson brings to the table, I think this is a prime spot for you to go to the college game and get somebody who is adept at utilizing that new age hyper athlete, but yet can still really throw the ball quarterback. So I think this is a real
Lincoln Riley's
opportunity.
right there.
I'm telling you, it's Oklahoma's become an absolute factory for that style of player. So it could be interesting. And how long does Deebo Samuel want to continue to run his empire at Clemson? Wait, wrong Deebo.
Swinney?
Yeah.
I was like, that took me a second.
Dabo Swinney or Deebo Samuel?
Dabo.
Yeah,
I got my Debos and Dabos crossed.
Always got to watch your Debo Dabos. Last one, Mike Leach. Am I alone? Like, I would love for the Jets to hire Mike Leach. Am I crazy? Like, am I missing something about the crazy offensive mind that is Mike Leach?
I feel
I don't know if it would be successful, but
it'd be fun.
Shit, at least it would be something.
I do like Pirates, and that would be entertaining. Boy, it would be entertaining. Could you imagine the press conferences? Boy, that offense would be innovative, but that feels awful Chip Kelly-ish to me. But I don't know. You know, we've always heard that Leach has this unique personality, but yet his players love him. So I just don't know.
I say as a fan, yes. That's just fun.
Right?
I do like fun.
And I think that's what we deserve as Jets fans. Or Redskins fans.
Well, yeah, that's true.
We deserve a little fun.
Let us at least have that.
Right? Just a little bit, please. Well, anyway. Let's quick flip the channel and check in with Ryan and another Devy Debrief. Ryan?
Thanks, guys. We return to the SEC this week to talk about destiny. Yeah, destiny. And how certain players are just destined for the NFL, but also how no two paths look exactly the same. For example, let's explore two such paths. First, you have a 2-star receiver, an afterthought. This player was offered a scholarship to a major program because he had 2 brothers who played there previously. He shows up on campus, again, a 2-star, few believe in him, and when asked to declare a major, he picks interdisciplinary studies. You might ask, what does one do with an interdisciplinary studies degree? The answer is probably nothing, but where this player knew he was headed, it didn't matter if he had that degree or not. His freshman year in 2017 was a dud. He appeared in 2 games and had 1 carry for 4 yards, but he continued to work, quietly, in the background, and in 2019, he exploded to become one of the best receivers in the nation, ended up drafted in the first round, and is now largely considered a top 20 Dynasty receiver as a rookie. He knew where he was headed from the beginning, even if he was the only one. Then there's another kind of destiny, the kind where success is a foregone conclusion. You're the number 13 recruit in the nation, a 5-star receiver, a top 300 prospect of all time. Every relevant program in the SEC is after you. Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Georgia, LSU, Texas A&M. And that's just the SEC. Texas, Oregon, Oklahoma, and Miami are among the countless others who also came calling. But no matter where you choose to go, you're going to succeed. It's in the air around you. You're destined for the NFL, and it was never in question. So, you pick LSU, because your competition for reps at the time in 2018 was some guy named Justin Jefferson who had a career stat line of 1 carry for 4 yards. Early playing time looks likely, and it's at a perennial powerhouse. Shoot, sign me up. Or perhaps it's LSU because Louisiana is where you call home. Bossier City to be exact. Home of Barksdale Air Force Base, Jared Leto, and of course, Terrace Marshall Jr. Marshall's freshman season, on paper, was a dud, but the talent was apparent from the get-go and he flashed from time to time, ending the season with 12 receptions for 192 yards. Then 2019 happened, and LSU fielded the greatest team in college football history, and everyone feasted. Marshall was no different. Hidden away just a little lower on the depth chart, Marshall quietly put together a strong sophomore campaign. He made 46 receptions for 671 yards and 13 touchdowns. Now in 2020, Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Justin Jefferson are off crushing it in the pros. Joe Brady is the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. Jamar Chase opted out. Terrace Marshall Jr. stands alone. All eyes are on him, especially in a year where LSU has struggled in this 2-3 start. And in these times when the team needs an example to look to, Marshall has played hard, serving as that beacon of light in an otherwise disappointing season. The junior has 31 receptions for 540 yards and 9 touchdowns through 5 games. He had at least 65 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns each week before an uncharacteristic 4-reception, 28-yard effort against Auburn that I wouldn't entirely blame on him. I could comment on his 235-yard, 3-touchdown explosion against Missouri, but I particularly liked what he did against South Carolina. He put up a lesser stat line of 88 yards and 2 touchdowns, but did it mostly while matched up against J.C. Horn, a defensive back who will be at least a second-round draft selection. On film, the first thing that stands out about Marshall is that he passes the eye test. Just an impressive athlete with great size and speed for his size. He's a strong route runner and makes plays no matter where he's lined up in the formation. His hands are fantastic. He might have an occasional drop, but it's nothing to worry about. Marshall also has some run after catch ability, and being a big, strong dude will break quite a few tackles. He has great leaping ability to high point passes, has a knack for getting open, and is a high effort player with a killer mentality. This man means business, and I could only picture what he could do with some real quarterback play. Unfortunately for us, I don't think we'll have to wait very long. Like Justin Jefferson, Terrace Marshall Jr. knew where he was headed from day one. Also an interdisciplinary studies major, Marshall's headed for the NFL the first chance he gets. I see him as a second-round prospect if he walked off the field tomorrow and opted out to prepare for the draft. But I think he finishes the season strong and can rise through the ranks throughout the draft process and might find himself in the late first-round conversation before it's all said and done. As for me, he's tentatively my wide receiver 8, eligible for the class of 2021, with a ceiling of wide receiver 6. I just think the top 5, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase, Rashad Bateman, Jalen Waddle, and Rondale Moore, in no particular order, are too solid for anyone new to break in. And that'll do it for me here. You can find me on Twitter at the Devy Dirtbag. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next Devy Debrief. Now, back to the podcast.
All right, thanks, Ryan. Well, now on to the main topic, gentlemen. It's that point of the season where you know whether you are contending or planning for next year. Tonight, we are talking about our favorite targets for both you managers who are contending and those who are rebuilding. And for some of you who are doing both, because you're in way too many leagues, like myself. Now, I am going to be optimistic. Yes, that's right. I'm going to start off optimistically. So let's talk about contenders. Eric, who are you telling the riders to target?
Yeah, so I think a great trade target if you're a contender right now, and obviously it's going to depend a little bit on your needs and your what positions you're looking to fill, but I think Keenan Allen would be an awesome trade target right now. We've seen his career kind of get revitalized. Not that it was ever actually in the dumps, but people seem to just move on in the offseason. He turned 28 before the season, and there were a lot of question marks about the quarterback position. We've talked about Justin Herbert a lot on this podcast, but there were questions about how well that was going to go, and here we are, 9-10 weeks later, and Justin Herbert looks amazing and has really kept Keenan Allen at the top of the wide receiver ranks. He's wide receiver 7 this season in PPR, and has 690 yards this season so far, 65 catches if you're playing in a PPR league. So just same old Keenan Allen, just consistently putting up numbers. And I think the fact that he's a wide receiver, yes, he's 28, but he's not like on the brink of his body disintegrating or anything. He just got a big contract in the offseason. And because of that kind of off-season dip in his value, I don't think he's really kind of shot up in price the way he should have. Where, this is somebody who's still a wide receiver 1, still in his prime, tied to a young franchise quarterback now, and I think you could get him for a first and a small piece. If you're a contender, a late first and a small piece, something like that. I think that's stealing at that point.
So you'd willing to give a late first and a small piece? Small piece like a wide receiver 3, or are you talking about like a running back 4?
Late first and a Darius Slayton or something like that. Assuming you're going to a rebuilding team who maybe wants a younger piece, I think you could do late first and a 2022 first. I don't think that's too much. And I don't think you really have. I'd be surprised if you have to go beyond that.
So you would be almost willing to give up 2 firsts?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Don't go in that heavy if you're going for Keenan Allen. I think you're going to
I don't think you need to go in that heavy.
I think especially a mid to a late first. I recently moved Tyler Lockett, who I would actually put a little bit behind Keenan Allen personally. And I moved him straight up for a late first.
Yeah.
But I would definitely invest a first for Keenan Allen, especially late.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a contender, I think it's easy to get excited about those late firsts. And, there's a good chance that player you're looking at with that pick is kind of a meh second round receiver in a meh situation. And it's really not that exciting at the end of the day.
No, so many times those end of the first round picks don't pan out. You really have to take the risk of whether or not the player you're going to pick is going to work versus knowing what you have in Keenan Allen, knowing,
right,
you're able to say, I'm going to have him for X amount of years, hopefully, and kind of balance the two. Don, which are you going with? Are you going to go with a late first or Keenan Allen?
If I'm a contending team, I'd be willing to swap that late first for Keenan Allen. I think he's in a good spot with a good quarterback that's only getting better, and in an offense that, particularly for this year, because if it's my go for it year, that offense is going to be throwing the ball all over the place the whole rest of the year because just to be competitive. So, I would take the late one on a wide receiver that's still young enough, that's got production ahead of him, and in a really good spot.
Yeah, have to agree with you. Don, who is your target for a contending team?
Okay, if I'm a contending team and I am short on the end for receivers, and I don't really want to blow things up and just cash in all my draft picks, I'm going to look at Brandon Cooks here. Since week 5, he's gotten at least 9 targets a game with a high of 11 targets, and I feel like he could be acquired for a middling asset probably because of long-term injury problems and some general inconsistencies in Houston, but he seems to be taking over more and more of the wide receiver one from Fuller there and has been producing of late. So he's kind of that classic 1 or 2 years, you're going to make a relatively lower investment to get, and then he's just going to be good for you and then gone.
So what did you say you're willing to move?
For me, I'd be looking at a 2 and a piece. So a young wide receiver who's kind of just developing, or a young player that's developing, and a second round pick. You have to take the temperature of the league you're in and see where guys are, because we all know what general values are, and then individual guys value people differently. If he happens to be on a poor team that's just looking to acquire assets in a league that's maybe not Devy depleted, then I would say you could probably get him in with a second and stuff. Maybe a second and a fourth, or even a second and a third might be enough to sway that owner.
Eric, are you moving, if you're a contender, are you moving Brandon Cooks for a second?
If I'm a contender, would I want him for that?
Would you want him for a second?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think if you have the need at wide receiver and as a flex option, that's a good way to go. We've seen Brandon Cooks as kind of a volatile option in the past where he can have those big spike weeks, and that's exactly what I would love to have out of a flex option or a wide receiver 3 in the playoffs, because you want those big spike weeks where you put up like 180 points and there's no way you can lose, because at the end of the day, you get to the playoffs, you're playing the best teams, you need spike weeks. So I kind of like that about Brandon Cooks. I think he's a really good fit for a contender. And yeah, I mean, to Don's point, he's very affordable right now. He's with a good quarterback. I mean, this is a guy that's had 4 straight 1,000 yards, or not for the last 4 seasons, but 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons not very long ago at all, with multiple different quarterbacks. And he's been a little forgotten about. So, yeah, I think that's a great way to go.
Yeah, I find Cooks is in that weird range of wide receivers. I place him with like a Devontae Parker, where I'm never sure. Like a second's not enough, but a first is too much. Mm-hmm. So it is. It's always finding that extra piece that makes the deal work. Now, for me, I mean, it seems like we all picked a wide receiver, right? I'm going with Michael Pittman. I think right now, Michael Pittman is coming off of IR to a solid role in a Colts offense. He has 15 targets the past 2 weeks. He posted 100 yards in a win over the Titans last week. I think that earned the trust of Papa Rivers. So once you have that trust, I think you're in a great place. Now, Michael Pittman went in the second round of rookie draft. So personally, I would start by floating like a third. See if that owner is disappointed. Most good managers would automatically say no. They'd reject that out of hand. But we've seen weird trades. And some managers don't like watching a rookie put up 12 points or 30 points through 10 weeks. It gets under their skin and they want to see points on their roster, right? Sometimes I do that. I scan down my total points scored in my MFL leagues and I'm like, why does this guy only have 10? Everybody else has like 50, right? So maybe you can send that a low offer. And, instead of bumping right up to a second, maybe add in a third, right? Or, do a third and a fourth rather than bumping up to a second. But see what you can put out there and see what you can get for that. But I think Michael Pittman doesn't have a lot of background. People aren't super invested in him. I think now's the time to definitely get him if you're contending. Don?
I'll tell you what, I absolutely agree with that. And I actually have him on my list for starting the rebuild here because he's the classic piece you want. He just came into the league. He had that slow start and then was injured. So guys are willing to sell or sell low on him because they're just kind of writing the deal off. I was fortunate enough to acquire him in a league earlier for Travis Fulgham, who I think is already kind of starting to just decline from that initial burst into the scene. And I believe I gave up a fourth with Fulgham. And I'm happy to have him because he's the kind of risk you want to take when you're trying to rebuild. And now it may even turn out that, like some of the other members of this ridiculous wide receiver class, that he may very well be a real contributor down the stretch.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that one, Don. I think you have to get players, wait till they have value, and then move them for better pieces immediately. And Fulgham reeks of that right now.
Absolutely.
He reeks of that, which actually leads me to, we should talk about now rebuilding teams. We each had ours for contenders. My player for the rebuilding, what I'm thinking about, this is the time of year in my rebuilding leagues where I'm starting to pick up late round rookies whose managers are getting tired, right? Like we were just saying, of not producing. You're going to see popular flyers, people who you are taking in like the 8th round of your draft, start to drop off of rosters. Guys like James Proche, Quintus Cephas, Isaiah Wright on your football team.
Yeah.
I love Isaiah Wright. I like going after disappointing rookies. Good managers know better than to give up so quickly, but there are plenty of bad managers out there. So reach out and see how they value Brian Edwards. See how they value Henry Ruggs right now. Make an offer. Send a second for Ruggs. See if they take it. Send a third for Edwards. See if they take it, right? Or offer a veteran who is producing who doesn't have upside. Devontae Parker. I'm sorry. He doesn't have upside to me.
No,
don't see upside.
He is what he is.
Parker. Travis Fulgham, right? They're going to see that big number after his name in MFL. David Moore is putting up points. See if you can move those guys who have no place on your roster of the future. See if you can trade them for a disappointing piece who might pay off and become a cornerstone or at least a helping piece on your roster. Eric, how do you feel about Ruggs or Edwards right now?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's the complete right approach. And I think you're helped a little bit this year by the fact that this past draft class was so deep that you saw Henry Ruggs kind of get pushed to the back of the first round, or you saw Brian Edwards get pushed to the back of the second round. So now, you offer a second round pick for a guy like Henry Ruggs. I think that's a reasonable offer. I think there will be people who will panic sell for that. And you're not even you're getting the guy who was the first wide receiver off the board in what's shaping up to be yet another fantastic rookie wide receiver class. So maybe he's not producing like the T. Higgins and CeeDee Lambs and Justin Jeffersons of the world yet. But he got drafted over all of them. That's a great piece to take a shot at. And a second round investment is just, it's not that significant. You're not going to get if you look at who you'd get with that pick this year, it's not going to be the 13th overall pick in the draft or 12th overall, whatever Ruggs was.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Don, you're on board?
Oh, yeah. If you can get Ruggs for cheap, it's certainly something to do. There's absolutely the role in the offense for that downfield threat that Ruggs presents, and no one's really taken that right now. What's also interesting is the targets for Aguilar, who is on a 1-year deal but has been very solid. He's a free agent at the end of the year. There's no guarantee he's coming back, so that's going to be an open opportunity for one of these two rookie wide receivers that probably just needed a year to develop and find their spot in the league. So there's growth potential there for both of them.
Eric, who is your target for a rebuilding team?
Yeah, so you mentioned kind of like a general archetype of player, and I really like that because I think there's another archetype that you should really target if you're a rebuilding team, and that's injured players. So you hear it a lot, but injured players are a great target for multiple reasons. One, their teams, if they're on a contending team right now, that team isn't getting anything from them. They probably have a hole in their lineup. They need to fill it. If that, maybe there's a contender in your league who has George Kittle and they're on edge now because, I thought I had a great team. I don't anymore. You can fill that need. You get an elite tight end next season. And in the meantime, you don't have any points filling up your roster to drag your draft picks up, basically, for the offseason. So it's kind of a win-win-win for everybody involved. And there's a lot of guys like that. You've got George Kittle, recently hurt, Saquon Barkley. That's a big swing. You still have to, invest a lot, but this is probably the lowest chance or best chance you'll have to target a guy like that. Cortland Sutton's hurt. How many guys, even somebody like Christian McCaffrey, he's banged up. He was probably going to still play a little bit, but people are more down on a guy like Christian McCaffrey than they probably should be, considering he's probably still the most valuable dynasty piece in all of fantasy football.
Have you seen any decrease in value for Saquon since his injury?
I think so. It's tough to say in just your few leagues. I'll say I haven't had him in 4 leagues before the injury, and I wanted to try and target him in the other 4 dynasties that I'm in, and I was successful in a couple leagues. I don't remember the specific trades, but I think it was like Julio Jones and Melvin Gordon. I don't think for Saquon, I don't think that deal happens before the injury. And then it was, I think the other one was Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and some other pieces for Saquon and some other pieces. It might have been actually Saquon and Sutton. So again, I think those trades only happen because Saquon and Sutton got hurt.
Yeah, I have to agree.
What the heck do I care if I give up CEH's production this year, and next year I have Saquon, who I'd rather have anyways. I've got Cortland Sutton, slot him right in the lineup.
Yeah, and, as a pure dynasty podcast, it is important for a manager to understand that if you're rebuilding, the players on your team, you have to view them as if are they going to be a part of your rebuild?
Yep. Yes.
Because if you have somebody who's a middling talent and you're doing a 2-year rebuild, they're probably not going to be worth anything by the time you're ready to compete.
Right.
But the hardest thing to do is to cut the players who you're attached to.
Like somebody like Robert Woods, they're not that old, but I don't know, 2 years from now, what are they really getting you? I would, sell Robert Woods for whatever you can if you're completely tearing it down. You don't need to take like a 3rd or 4th round pick, but you don't need to hold out for max value because you're not getting anything from him anyways.
I know I've moved players. Well, I just moved Curtis Samuel and some pieces for a first. I moved Tyler Lockett for a first. I'm just trying to get rid of these players. I moved Devontae Parker for a second. And I actually took a deal that was a little bit low on him, only because I wanted him off my roster.
Yeah.
I wanted him gone because he wasn't part of my future.
If anything, he's hurting you with the points he's getting you right now.
In many cases.
Right, and especially because I'm somebody who I start my best players even when I'm trying to tank.
Right.
If you're going to burn it down, burn it all the way down. Don't dip your toe in the water. You're either rebuilding or you're building.
As they said in 8 Mile, ain't no such thing as halfway crook. Right? You can't kind of rebuild.
A couple other buy low guys are in the same boat. Deebo Samuel's another one who's been all in and out of the lineup this year in San Francisco. Young guy, a lot of potential ahead of him. And Kenny Galladay's been all kinds of in and out of the lineup this year.
I think Kenny Galladay is a perfect example, Don. I think that is a fantastic example. Not only has Kenny Galladay not been producing, but he has been questionable and then moved to out in multiple weeks. As a manager of Kenny Galladay, that's been pissing me off.
No
because
question.
I have him in my roster and then I have to replace him every week, back and forth. But I actually did make a move for Kenny Galladay today because I recognize that he's just trying to annoy me and I'm not going to let him. Right, Eric? You feel that, right?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, that's the exact sort of thing you want to target is what owners are frustrated with somebody right now.
And you need to capture the frustration. And frustration isn't always scoring few points. It's pain points. It's the players that make you work too hard to keep them on your roster.
And there's nothing worse than the late out that gets you a 0 for the week. And that happens
Joe
once or
Mixon
twice.
is doing that to me lately. Joe Mixon is always questionable. And I always have to check at the last minute. Do I need to put Bernard in? Do I need to keep Mixon in? Like, I would rather just have Mixon off my roster at this point and trade him for somebody around the same level, like a Josh Jacobs. That might be too high, just so I don't have to deal with that constant headache of monitoring whether or not a player is going to play. It's not a big deal when you're in a couple leagues, but when you're in like 20 plus, it starts to get annoying. It starts to get annoying.
My rebuild guy in particular is J.K. Dobbins. He's the perfect example of a running back rookie who hasn't gotten much play, but when he's played, he's been really effective. But when you're looking down the rosters and you see like 70 points near a dude that you spent big capital on, the frustration is right there. And the writing's on the wall. He's going to get his chance next year. But you just got to maintain and get to next year. So if you can get a guy who's frustrated and wants out, perfect example of a guy who's going to probably go off next year.
Yes. Yes, especially in that running back category. Cam Akers. Cam Akers is another one. I think he has like 35 points.
Yeah, done nothing.
Right? So far this year. And I look at him because he's on a couple of my rosters and I'm like, man, I put like the 1-6 into him.
Right.
And he has 35 points. If you're in one of my leagues, try to get Cam Akers. I don't like that. Eric, where are you at?
Yeah, I agree because it's like you said, I mean, teams drafted these guys at 1-6, 1-5, 1-4, and are probably thinking like, oh, this is my RB2 this year. He's going to be great. He's going to be the next breakout star. And it's been kind of nothing but disappointment, but not – I don't think it's panic time yet. But there's going to be some owners or managers out there panicking at this point. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to go. And it's also, from a rebuilding perspective, it can be hard to get a running back like that or a true workhorse running back, and this is one of the best ways to do it.
Yep. The last thing we didn't mention about buy low guys is guys who just got forced out by unbelievable rookies. And I'm going to give you one name real quick, and we're moving on. Mike Gallup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly who I thought of when you said that.
Perfect. That's a perfect example of a guy who's being forced out. It's absolutely just looking into the psychology of it, looking for the pain points and exploiting them, and understand that not everybody is a good manager and you have to find them. Because if you don't find them, what we all learn over the years, somebody else in your league is going to find them.
Yeah.
And you're going to see those trades and you're going to kick yourself in the ass because you could have offered it and you could have got that deal done.
Yeah, leagues are weird. I mean, there's all sorts of managers out there, and, you know, not everybody's listening to Dynasty podcasts every day on the way home from work, you know.
Only degenerates.
Yeah,
so
only us
a trade that I recently saw. So I know I've talked to you guys about my big 96 team league. So it's basically a 16 team Superflex PPR IDP league, crazy league. So I saw Jake Luton go twice in the past week and a half. He went for Quintez Cephas in a late third and Jared Davis in a mid third. The linebacker, Jared Davis of the Lions. I believe he's still on the Lions. Quintez Cephas, wide receiver 4 for the Lions right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are either of you making that trade if you are the manager of Luton, Eric?
I think I would. I just have zero confidence that he's anything more than a stopgap. I mean, I just think there's almost zero chance that he's anybody's starting quarterback next season. So that's kind of in the territory of just take what you can get.
So you are saying take anything you can get for Luton, like a third and above in a super flex? Or would you take like a fourth, fifth?
I mean, I'm not taking a fourth, fifth if I'm actually using him.
Okay.
But, yeah, I mean, if he's your third quarterback option at this point in the season, you're getting close to the playoffs. I mean, I'd move him for a third for sure, maybe a fourth.
Yeah, this isn't a league where I went from having no starting quarterbacks to Justin Herbert only. And now I have like 5 starting QBs because I have Jake Luton and Andy Dalton, somebody else pretty weird. I forget who it is. But I've been thinking about trying to move Luton.
I would advise you to do that as quickly as possible because Jacksonville is on the fast track to new quarterback land come draft time. If they finish with the 2, it's probably Fields. If they somehow finish with the 1, it's Lawrence. And if not, Gardner's coming back, and Gardner has already done as well or better than Luton, and he's already kind of established himself a little bit. So for me, Luton's just a till the end of the year kind of guy. So if you can get any kind of draft pick right now, if I could get a fourth out of him, I'm flipping it right now. But that's if I'm not using him to compete this minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fair enough. Eric.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a trade for me?
I do. So I mentioned George Kittle earlier. How about this? Noah Fant, Deebo Samuel, and Philip Lindsay for George Kittle, a 2 and a 3.
Noah Fant, Deebo Samuel, and whom?
Philip Lindsay for George Kittle, a 2 and a 3.
And you're taking in Kittle?
I took in Kittle in this scenario, yeah. But I think what's interesting is you've kind of got some young pieces going out the door on one side and then the injured star coming in the door on the other side. So you could make the case that the rebuilding team would want either side.
How many teams?
16.
Is that a 16-team league?
Yes.
Big league. Is it tight end premium?
It is not.
That makes a big difference.
PPR?
PPR, yeah.
I would definitely I think I would take the Fant side. I don't think the difference moving forward between Fant and Kittle is going to be outrageous. I don't know if Kittle's going to be like Kelsey outrageous.
Yeah.
When this all turns out. I mean, I think he's probably going to be, tight end 1, but I think Fant might be tight end 4 or 5.
Right.
So then it's really like a 2 and a 3 for Deebo and Lindsay.
And they're late picks.
A late second and a late third. I mean, it's not. I think that's actually a pretty even trade. Because, right, I can see giving a second for Deebo. I mean, he's worth more than that. So Deebo and Noah for Kittle in a second. But then it's Philip Lindsay. I think Philip Lindsay is better than a third.
I agree.
If he gets the opportunity.
So I actually sent out the Fant side, and it was like down to the wire, last minute, like literally accepted 30 seconds before the trade deadline in that league, which had an early deadline. And I think I kind of panic forced it. I think the Fant side is a little better. Yeah,
especially now that you're saying that they're late picks.
Yeah.
Because that's not like a late second. That's not like 24. We're talking about that's 32.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because it's a late
in
a 16 team.
Yeah, it's almost like bump them back around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? Like the third would be, 48th?
Yeah.
Like it would be closer to 48 than 36.
Now
like
it's IDP,
a full
but
round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely go with the Fant side on that one.
Well, it's especially if you're attempting to lose, acquiring Kittle now does help you. If you're trying to maximize your own draft pick, then that's of small value, but it's a bonus, right? So,
Eric, are you rebuilding or contending in that league?
I am rebuilding, but I don't have my pick, so
if you are,
we're all over the place here.
Oh, okay. Well, if you're all over
Pros
the
and
place,
cons left and right.
If you're all over the place, it's kind of an odd one. I mean, I guess it's kind of nice because you replenish the 2 and the 3 if you gave those up previously. And you're always in the position where coming into next year, Kittle is still Kittle, and you can always flip him for high-end value. So if you have to liquidate him to acquire high picks, you probably can. But if you're tanking, and it just has to be your objective to be real bad, to inflate your own picks and whatever you take in. But because the picks coming in are going to be late, I don't know that I'd have done that.
All right. So I'm just putting this through. Is it a super flex league?
No.
So it's standard. But you said it's PPR, correct?
It is PPR, yeah.
And no tight end premium, which is interesting because that does kind of inflate Kittle's value at the tight end position, which is kind of counterintuitive. But he's at least the only tight end that's going to score for you, or one of 2. Maybe 4 that's really going to produce.
Yeah. I think it's a fair point, though, JJ, that, how far apart are Fant and Kittle really? I mean, yeah, Kittle's been a lot more productive so far, but he's older. Fant's one of my top 4 or 5 Dynasty tight ends, at least, at this point.
And you love Fant.
I do, yeah. I mean, I think he's a definite top 5 Dynasty tight end, so to pay up to move from, 5 to 3 or something.
So we're looking at Dynasty Trade Calculator, which is, I use them a lot just to keep my sanity in the trading world. It's not that far apart. I mean, it's 36.4 for the Noah Fant side and 31.8 for the Kittle side. So it's not a huge difference. So I can see both sides of that trade, though.
Yeah, definitely. It's not bad in either direction, and it's kind of a matter of personal preference as to what you really want to do.
Yeah. Don, what trade do you have?
All right. So this is one that I made earlier in the year in a league where I'm expecting to compete next year. I moved DJ Moore, Fant, a 2 and a 4. So my 2 and 4 will be kind of later. Because I'm 7 and 3 there, but it's a fake 7 and 3 for Godwin, Goddard, and a 3rd, which will be high.
So DJ, Fant, a 2 and a 4, and those are late 2s and 4s.
Yes.
And you said it's a what, like early 3rd?
It'll be an early 3rd.
So you moved Fant, DJ, a late 2nd, a late 4th for Godwin, Goddard, and an early 3rd.
Correct.
All right. So for me to break this down, I'm going to do this like I teach annotation to my kids. We just did poetry in school. So I'm going to break this down. I'm going to say the tight ends, Fant versus Goddard. We're taking Fant. I don't think Goddard is super far behind, though.
Yep.
And age-wise, they're pretty... How old's Goddard?
I think Goddard is only a year older.
Goddard is 25. He's 2 years older. So I'm going Fant there. If I'm saying DJ and Godwin, I'm going Godwin. And I would take the 2nd and the 4th.
Over the 3, yeah.
Over the 3, obviously. So is Fant... Oof. I'm going the Fant side.
I think I would, too. I think the Fant edge there is bigger than the Godwin edge.
The Fant edge is big.
Fant over Goddard by more than Godwin over Moore.
DJ. And especially with the 2 and the 4.
Right.
Kind of kicking it up a notch. Which side were you? You were the Goddard
I
side.
received the Godwin Goddard.
But now this was also earlier in the season when Goddard was healthy and putting up a lot more points.
It's true, but I really want him for next year's what I really want him for. And my thought process was this. I made the trade, I think, 2 weeks ago. By that point, the Panthers' offense has no real plan for DJ Moore. And his target share has been totally reduced. He's now a wide receiver 2 in that offense. Now he's still producing yards and splash plays, and he's getting in the end zone recently. But to that point, he hadn't been getting in the end zone. And I think the potential with Brady for Godwin is just to next year when Godwin's actually healthy. That exceeds what Moore in an offense that they just don't really know what they're going to do with him is going to do. But again, this comes down to personal preference. I value Chris Godwin a lot more than I value DJ Moore. I think it's probably just my personal rankings. And as I look at Goddard and Fant, with Ertz gone, I see Goddard actually coming up the rankings a little bit. So I think that gap kind of gets narrowed.
Did you say this was a 12-team league?
Yes.
PPR?
Yes.
Superflex?
Yes.
Tight end premium?
No. Wait, yes. Too many league syndrome.
Again, this is pretty close. Dynasty Trade Calculator actually has the Godwin side winning for the opposite reason as both Eric and I said. They have Godwin way ahead of DJ Moore and Fant barely ahead of Goddard. I disagree. I'm taking the DJ Moore side in that.
Yeah, that's a good one though.
But I acknowledge that, that's a toss-up. I think that's 50-50.
I mean, that's the sort of fun thing, though, where, that's how the trades get done. One guy wants Godwin a lot, and one guy wants Fant a lot, and
it's tough
all of a
because
sudden it's...
when you blow out somebody in a trade, there can often be bad feelings, and you really want trades to be amenable to both sides and meet each other's needs so that people are willing to come back to you.
Yeah.
These leagues start and stay together for a long time, most of the time, with basically the same owners. So when you send insulting trades or when you just blow away a guy with what turns out to be an absolutely miserable trade, it's good for the now, but that can leave bad feelings that mean you don't get your guy next time. Or you don't even get listened to when you're trying to pitch an offer. So to keep yourself in the game, it's good that both sides do okay.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, those seem to be the best trades where everybody thinks that they won. All right. Well, gentlemen, we've said a lot here tonight. A lot more than I thought we were going to say. Thought this was going to be a short little pod, but we ended up having a pretty deep talk about Dynasty. I appreciate that. But it is time for tags, where we share our final thoughts and let the riders know where they can find us. Eric, where you at?
Find me on Twitter at Eric Braunmower. If you've got any last-minute deadline deals, I'd love to hear about them. I'll weigh in if I can, and get out there, make some trades, make some moves.
Don.
This is the fun part in the season. So the best advice I can give you about trading is decide where your future with your team lies. Be heartless with yourself. Look at it, be as real as you can be, and decide, am I in or am I out? And then go with that and make moves accordingly. Because if you're dipping your toe in the water, you're treading water, and 8-8 land is no fun for anyone.
And for a penny and for a pound. All right. I'm at JJ Wenner. I'm purely 100% on team no trade deadline in Dynasty leagues. It's ridiculous.
Preach.
But from all of us to all of you, be safe, be well, and as always, boat drinks, my friends. Boat drinks.